The Draunus Prime Embassy Station orbited silently against the crimson backdrop of the Draconis system, its gleaming metallic structures reflecting the dual suns that cast long, eerie shadows across its surface. For 6 decades, this floating metropolis had been the site of failed negotiations between humanity and the fearsome Draconis hierarchy, talks that had repeatedly collapsed into threats, ultimatums, and now, the imminent possibility of Earth's annihilation. Cassidy Wu stared out the viewport of the approaching diplomatic shuttle, her 17-year-old heart hammering against her ribs as the massive station grew larger. The self-proclaimed reptile whisperer from Nebraska fidgeted with the frayed edges of her singed plaid shirt, a battle scar from her latest encounter with Smaug, her temperamental iguana. The irony wasn't lost on her. From calming a 3-pound lizard to preventing interstellar genocide, the universe had a twisted sense of humor. "Stop fidgeting," hissed Marjorie Clipwad, Earth's senior diplomatic representative. The woman's perfectly coiffed silver hair remained unnaturally still, despite the shuttle's turbulence, a testament to either advanced cosmetic technology or sheer force of will. The Draconis analyze every micro-movement as a potential threat display. Cassidy nodded absently, her attention captured by the enormous docking bay, opening like a mechanical maw to receive their ship. "So they're basically like my iguana, but with spaceships and nuclear weapons." "This is not a joke, young lady." Clipwad's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. 6 billion lives depend on your behavior in the next 48 hours. Earth's remaining military resources are exhausted. We have no leverage except you and your peculiar talent. The shuttle shuddered as docking clamps engaged, the metallic groan reverberating through the cabin. Tarlok Gex, the security commander assigned to their mission, glanced up from his tactical display. His cybernetically enhanced eye glowed a dull red in the dimmed cabin. "Draconis security scans complete," he reported, his voice a gravelly rumble. "They've deployed 16 Class 4 biosensors and 23 psychometric arrays. They're taking no chances after the Proxima incident." Dr. Eliza Matsuo, their scientific advisor, looked up from her holographic display. Unlike Clipwad's rigid composure, Matsuo's appearance reflected the chaos of the past 72 hours. Uncombed hair, rumpled lab coat, and the haunted look of someone who hadn't slept since the emergency summons. "The calculations remain consistent," she said, fingers dancing across invisible interfaces. "Cassidy's pheromone signature shows a 97.3% probability of triggering the Draconis dorsal ventral relaxation response. But remember," she fixed Cassidy with an intense stare, "one wrong move and those same pheromones could trigger their defense mechanisms instead." Cassidy swallowed hard. "So I could either save humanity or become barbecue." "Great." The airlock hissed open, revealing a sterile corridor bathed in amber light, calibrated to the Draconis visual spectrum. As they prepared to disembark, Clipwad pressed a sleek tablet into Cassidy's hands. 57 conversational taboos, 38 forbidden gestures, and 26 fatal proximity violations, she explained tersely. "Memorize them, break anyone, and we all die." Cassidy glanced at the dense text scrolling across the screen and felt her stomach lurch. This was infinitely more complicated than calming Smaug during thunderstorms. "What if I just wing it?" she asked, only half joking. Before Clipwad could respond, their comms erupted with an incoming transmission. A holographic figure materialized in the center of the cabin, a human wearing an iridescent bodysuit that seemed to shift between solid and vapor. "Void Vlog Supreme coming at you? Live from the apocalypse countdown!" The figure spoke with exaggerated enthusiasm. "Betting pools across 17 systems have Earth survival odds at 12,000 to 1 against." But wait, the figure leaned closer. Rumors of a secret weapon have just spiked the odds to 8,500 to 1. Slightly less terrible, folks. Gex terminated the transmission with a disgusted swipe. Vultures. The entire Orion arm is gambling on our extinction. Dr. Matsuo checked her instruments one final time. The Draconis will be monitoring your vital signs. Cassidy. They can detect fear through infrared signatures and chemosensory analysis. Perfect, Cassidy muttered. So I just need to not be terrified while facing dragon aliens who want to incinerate my planet. As they prepared to disembark, an emergency alert flashed across all their devices simultaneously. Gex's cybernetic eye pulsed rapidly as he processed the incoming data. "Breach in communication protocols," he barked. "Someone has hijacked the primary Draconis media channels." On every screen, a crude animation played on loop, a cartoonish human girl approaching a snarling dragon, arms outstretched, speaking the words that now flashed in both English and approximated Draconic. "Don't be scared, big lizard. I just want to hug you." Clipwad went pale. "Who authorized this? This violates 14 separate diplomatic protocols." All eyes turned to Cassidy, who raised her hands defensively. "Don't look at me, I didn't." "It's everywhere," Matsuo whispered, staring at her tablet. "Every Draconis communication network, entertainment channel, and military frequency. And they think it's an official Earth message." Gex's tactical display erupted with alert notifications. "Draconis defensive systems going to maximum readiness. Their battle cruisers are powering weapons arrays." The station shuddered as distant alarms began to wail. Through the viewport, Cassidy could see Draconis guards rushing in formation, their scaled bodies gleaming under emergency lighting. "We're dead," Clipwad stated flatly. But amid the chaos, Matsuo's tablet pinged with an unexpected notification. "The betting odds," she said incredulously. "They're changing. Earth's survival probability just jumped to 2,000 to 1. "Still terrible odds," Gex growled. "No. You don't understand," Matsuo countered. "The Draconis are the ones placing the new bets, in favor of peace." Clipwad snatched the tablet, eyes widening as she scanned the data. "This is unprecedented. Something about that message has divided their leadership." A new transmission cut through their conversation, this one on a secure diplomatic channel. The scaly, rigid face of a Draconis official filled the holographic display, vertical pupils narrowing to slits. "The human juvenile will present herself in the negotiation chamber. Alone. Immediately." The transmission ended before anyone could respond. "Absolutely not," Clipwad declared. "It's a trap." "Maybe," Cassidy said, surprising herself with the steadiness in her voice. "Or maybe it's our only chance." While the adults argued logistics, protocols, and survival probabilities, Cassidy quietly slipped the tablet into her pocket and moved toward the airlock. If humanity's fate rested on her shoulders, she wouldn't hide behind committees and calculations. "Don't wait up," she called over her shoulder, stepping through the airlock before anyone could stop her. The corridor stretched before her, its amber lighting casting her shadow in multiple directions. With each step, she felt the station's sensors tracking her movements, analyzing her body temperature, heart rate, and the mysterious pheromone signature that had made her Earth's last, desperate hope. Behind her, she could hear Clipwad's muffled protests cut short as the airlock sealed. Ahead lay the negotiation chamber, and either salvation or incineration. "Just like approaching Smaug during a thunderstorm," she whispered to herself. Slow movements, steady breathing, no sudden gestures. The corridor opened into a vast, circular chamber with a domed ceiling that simulated the Draconis' home sky, swirling with crimson clouds and twin suns. At the center stood a raised platform surrounded by 7 massive thrones, each occupied by a dragon lord of the Draconis hierarchy. They were magnificent and terrifying, each standing over 12 feet tall, even in their seated position, with scales that shifted between deep emerald and burnished gold depending on the light. Their elongated snouts housed rows of teeth that could shred titanium alloy. Membranous wings were folded tightly against powerful bodies, occasionally twitching with suppressed energy. At the center throne sat Prince Vexilahur, heir to the Draconis sovereign clutch and commander of their interstellar fleet. Unlike the others, his scales held a bluish tint that signified royal lineage. The nostril scales, what humans had nicknamed war scales, flared slightly as Cassidy approached. The chamber fell silent as every draconic eye fixed upon her. Cassidy felt their gazes like physical pressure, pushing her toward the floor. With conscious effort, she kept her spine straight and her pace steady. "You are the human weapon," Prince Vexilahur stated, his voice a rumbling bass that vibrated through Cassidy's bones. It wasn't a question. "I'm just a girl from Nebraska," Cassidy replied, stopping at the designated distance marker. "I work at a diner and take care of reptiles." A low hiss rippled around the chamber, the Draconis equivalent of murmured discussion. One of the Dragon Lords, distinguished by elaborate silver markings across his snout, leaned forward. "The human attempts deception," he snarled. "Our intelligence confirms an anomalous biochemical profile. She is engineered for warfare." Cassidy shook her head. "No engineering. Just me." Prince Vexilahur's massive tail swept across the platform, creating a gust of air that ruffled Cassidy's hair. "Explain the transmission that has infiltrated our networks. This hugging declaration." "I had nothing to do with that," Cassidy said truthfully. "But it's not wrong. Humans don't want war." "Falsehood!" roared another Dragon Lord, rising partially from his throne. Heat shimmer distorted the air around his jaws as internal fire chambers prepared for activation. 6 decades of negotiations suggest otherwise. Humans desire our territories, our resources, our technological supremacy. The temperature in the chamber rose noticeably as the Draconis collective agitation increased. Cassidy felt sweat beading on her forehead, but resisted the urge to wipe it away. Any sudden movement might be interpreted as aggression. "A test," Prince Vexilahur declared suddenly. With a gesture of his clawed hand, a panel opened in the floor, and a pedestal rose containing a shallow bowl filled with smoldering material. Cassidy recognized it from her briefings. Cinnamon ash, a psychoactive compound the Draconis used during interrogations. Its smoke induced fear responses and confusion in most species, but was particularly effective against humans. "Approach and breathe," commanded the prince. "If your intentions are peaceful, you will submit to truth revealing." It was the first major test. Refusing would be interpreted as deception, but the compound could trigger panic, rendering her pheromone signature ineffective or worse, transforming it into a threat marker. Drawing on years of experience, calming anxious reptiles. Cassidy controlled her breathing. She approached the pedestal with measured steps, never breaking eye contact with Prince Vexilahur. The smoke curled upward, carrying the sharp scent of cinnamon, mixed with something acrid and alien. Cassidy inhaled deliberately, feeling the compound's immediate effect, a tightening in her chest, a flutter of artificial panic, vivid images of danger flashing through her mind. The Dragon Lords leaned forward, expecting her to break, to show fear, to flee, to beg for mercy. Instead, Cassidy closed her eyes and pictured Smaug during his worst thunderstorm panic, remembering how she'd maintained her calm even when he'd bitten her hand, how her steady presence had eventually soothed his prehistoric brain. When she opened her eyes, the Draconis collective had gone utterly still. Their vertical pupils dilated in what her training identified as surprise. "Impossible," whispered one of the Dragon Lords. Cassidy took another step forward, then another, moving closer to Prince Vexilahar than any human negotiator had ever been permitted. She could feel the heat radiating from his massive body, smell the sulfurous undertone of his breath. "The human shows no fear response," observed the silver-marked Dragon Lord. "Anomalous." Prince Vexilahar's nostril scales flared wider, a warning sign. According to protocol, Cassidy should retreat immediately or risk being perceived as issuing a challenge. Instead, she did the unthinkable. She reached out her hand toward the prince's snout. Time seemed to freeze. In the command shuttle, Klipwad would be having a heart attack. Matsuo would be frantically analyzing data streams. Jex would be readying whatever futile defensive measures remained. Throughout the station, betting algorithms would be calculating the odds of human extinction in the next 5 seconds. Cassidy's fingers made contact with the edge of Prince Vexilahar's nostril scale, the very scale that, when touched, was culturally equivalent to a declaration of war in Draconis society. For 2.7 seconds, absolute silence engulfed the chamber. Cassidy could hear her own heartbeat, surprisingly steady given the circumstances. Then Prince Vexilahar did something that would rewrite xenobiological textbooks and diplomatic history simultaneously. He purred. The sound began as a low rumble, similar to a massive engine idling, then transformed into a resonant vibration that spread throughout his entire body. His enormous frame relaxed visibly, wings unfurling slightly from their tight fold, head tilting to increase contact with Cassidy's hand. The other Dragon Lords froze in shock, their own postures reflecting confusion and disbelief. The silver-marked one made a choking sound that Cassidy's translator couldn't process. "What? What have you done to the prince?" he finally managed to ask. Cassidy continued gently stroking the nostril scale, which now fluttered pleasantly under her touch. "Nothing. I'm just saying hello the way I would to any scared reptile." "The sovereign heir to the Draconis hierarchy is not a scared reptile," hissed another Dragon Lord, though he made no move to intervene. Prince Vexilahar's eyes had half closed in what appeared to be draconic bliss. "The sensation is unprecedented," he rumbled. "A biochemical reaction of significant pleasure." Throughout the station, every communication system, betting algorithm, and security protocol had gone haywire. In the 27 seconds since Cassidy had touched the prince's nostril scale, the probability calculators had crashed and rebooted 17 times, unable to process the paradigm shift occurring in real time. In the command shuttle, Dr. Matsuo stared at her readings in disbelief. "The prince's aggression hormones have dropped by 83%. His pleasure centers are lighting up like a Christmas tree. And his pheromone output." She looked up with wide eyes. "He's emitting bonding markers, the kind only seen between clutchmates or mates." Klipwad's perfectly composed facade finally cracked. "Are you saying that scary teenager is making the Dragon Prince happy?" Back in the negotiation chamber, the initial shock was wearing off, replaced by cautious curiosity. One by one, the other Dragon Lords leaned forward, nostrils flaring as they analyzed the unexpected biochemical exchange happening before them. "The human's touch triggers the clutch bonding response," observed one, sounding simultaneously horrified and fascinated. "A response reserved for those we consider family." Prince Vexilahar had recovered enough composure to straighten in his throne, though he made no move to distance himself from Cassidy's touch. "Explain this effect," he commanded, though his usual menacing tone had softened considerably. "Where I come from, I help scared reptiles feel safe," Cassidy explained, lowering her hand now that the immediate crisis had passed. "They're often afraid because they don't understand what's happening. They react with aggression because they think they're in danger." The prince's vertical pupils narrowed thoughtfully. "You suggest the Draconis hierarchy acts from fear?" "Don't we all?" Cassidy shrugged. Humans are terrified of your weapons and your size. You're probably scared of whatever you think we might do. Everyone's been too busy being afraid to notice we might actually get along. A ripple of communication passed between the Dragon Lords, a combination of subtle scale movements, pheromone releases, and subvocal rumbles that human translators could only partially decode. The silver-marked Dragon Lord spoke first. For 6 decades, human negotiators have approached with fear scent, speaking of treaties while their bodies betrayed thoughts of weapons. You are the first to approach with clutch scent. I'm not a diplomat, Cassidy admitted. I'm just good with lizards. The Draconis are not lizards, Prince Vexilahar corrected, though without the usual offense, such a comparison would trigger. We are the evolutionary apex of scaled sentience. Sorry, Cassidy smiled slightly. Force of habit. Something unprecedented was happening in the chamber. A relaxation of rigid protocol. A softening of boundaries established over centuries of Draconis diplomatic tradition. The prince gestured to a small seat that rose from the floor. The first time a human had been invited to sit in the negotiation chamber rather than stand like a supplicant. You will explain this hugging concept that has disrupted our networks, he commanded, though it sounded more like curiosity than a threat. It's how humans show affection and comfort, Cassidy explained, taking the offered seat. We wrap our arms around each other. It releases chemicals in our brains that make us feel safe and happy. The Dragon Lords exchanged glances that ranged from skeptical to intrigued. Physical contact is a form of non-reproductive bonding, mused one. Primitive, but interesting. For the next 43 minutes, the most unusual diplomatic exchange in Earth Draconis history unfolded. Cassidy explained human concepts of physical affection, family bonding, and friendship, while the Draconis shared equivalent behaviors in their society, rituals of scale preening, thermal sharing, and synchronized flight patterns that served similar social functions. Throughout the station, betting odds continued their unprecedented shift. Earth's survival probability climbed from 2,000 to 1 to even odds, then surpassed all projections as wagers on permanent peace accord began appearing in significant numbers. In the command shuttle, the diplomatic team watched in stunned silence as Cassidy casually dismantled 6 decades of hostile impasse through what amounted to a cross-species show and tell. This shouldn't be working, Clipwad whispered, her perfectly arranged hair finally beginning to droop with the stress of the past hours. We've had the finest diplomatic minds, game theorists, and xenopsychologists working on this problem for decades. Dr. Matsuo smiled faintly, watching the biochemical readings continue their positive trend. Sometimes the obvious solution is invisible to experts. We've been treating the Draconis as strategic opponents, rather than what they fundamentally are. And what's that? Gex asked, his tactical system still monitoring for any sign of threat. Highly intelligent, emotional beings with a fundamentally different, but equally valid way of experiencing the world, Matsuo replied. Just like Cassidy's lizards, but with spaceships and nuclear weapons. In the negotiation chamber, the conversation had progressed to concrete diplomatic terms with remarkable efficiency, without the usual posturing and threat assessments that had plagued previous negotiations. Both sides discovered that many of their core concerns were easily addressable. So, to summarize, Prince Vexilahar was saying, his massive clawed hand manipulating a holographic display. Humans request non-interference in Earth's self-governance, protection from other potentially hostile species in the sector, and access to specified technological exchanges. And in return, Cassidy continued, surprising herself with how naturally the negotiation flowed, we offer exclusive mining rights to uninhabited systems in the Kuiper Belt, cultural exchange programs, and a commitment not to expand military operations within 3 light-years of any Draconis territory. The prince's nostril scales fluttered in what Cassidy was beginning to recognize as thoughtful consideration. These terms are acceptable. But one matter remains unresolved. What's that? The matter of consumption. Cassidy blinked. Consumption. The silver-marked Dragon Lord clarified. Previous human negotiators refused to address our dietary inquiries. Your species has consistently avoided the consumption clause in all draft treaties. A chill ran down Cassidy's spine as she suddenly understood. You wanted to know if we were planning to eat you? Of course not, Prince Vexilahur rumbled. We wish to establish that Draconis would never be considered acceptable food sources for humans. Cassidy stared in disbelief. Wait, you thought humans wanted to eat dragons? Your species consumes reptilian species on Earth, the prince stated matter-of-factly. Our intelligence suggested humans might view Draconis as potential food sources if our numbers were reduced through conflict. For a moment, Cassidy fought to maintain her composure. Then she burst into laughter, genuine, unrestrained laughter that echoed through the chamber. The Dragon Lords shifted uncomfortably, unsure how to interpret this reaction. I'm sorry, Cassidy managed between giggles. It's just, we were worried you wanted to eat us. That's been one of Earth's biggest fears. Prince Vexilahur's massive head tilted in confusion. Humans believe Draconis wished to consume them, but your biomass is insufficient for our caloric requirements. It would be highly inefficient. And you taste terrible, added another Dragon Lord, then quickly looked away when the others turned to stare at him. Or, so I would assume. The absurdity of the situation, two species on the brink of war, partly because each feared being eaten by the other, broke the last remnants of tension in the room. Even the Dragon Lords made sounds that Cassidy's translator identified as approximations of laughter, rumbling, hissing exhalations that vibrated the very air. Within the next 47 minutes, the fastest peace treaty in interstellar history was drafted, reviewed, and approved. The Respect and Non-Consumption Treaty between Earth and the Draconis hierarchy established not just peace, but the foundation for actual alliance, a diplomatic miracle that would be studied for generations. As the formal signatures, handprints for humans, scale impressions for Draconis, were applied to the document, betting systems across 17 systems crashed simultaneously from the volume of winning peace wagers being processed. The Void Vlog Supreme broadcast cut in and out as the host frantically tried to explain the incomprehensible turn of events to billions of viewers. In a development that has bookmakers contemplating ritual suicide, Earth and Draconis have not only avoided war, but signed a comprehensive peace treaty. The human weapon turned out to be, are you ready for this? Void Dwellers, a teenage girl who pets lizards. In the command shuttle, Clipwad had finally abandoned all pretense of composure, her silver hair sticking out at odd angles as she paced in disbelief. This can't be happening, she muttered. 60 years of diplomatic failure solved by a teenager in a burnt shirt who works at a milkshake stand. The biochemistry doesn't lie, Dr. Matsuo countered, still monitoring the readings. Cassidy's unique pheromone signature triggered a neurological response in the Draconis that bypassed their usual threat assessment pathways. In essence, she made them feel safe enough to actually listen. Jex, ever the security professional, remained skeptical. So we just got lucky that the kid happens to smell good to dragons. Not luck, Matsuo corrected. Evolution. Humans evolved alongside reptiles, developing complex relationships with them. Some humans, like Cassidy, developed biochemical markers that allow for interspecies bonding. It's why she's good with her pets. We just never considered that the same trait might work on sentient reptiloids. So the savior of humanity is a girl with lizard-charming body odor, Clipwad said flatly. Wonderful. As the formal proceedings concluded, Cassidy found herself surrounded by dragon lords who had, just hours earlier, been contemplating her species' extinction. Now they were asking questions about Earth's reptile species, comparing scale care routines, and expressing interest in cultural exchange programs focused on interspecies bonding techniques. Prince Vexilahar approached as the others dispersed, his massive form somehow less intimidating now that Cassidy understood the subtle language of his movements. "Your approach has changed perspectives," he acknowledged, nostril scales fluttering in what she now recognized as respect. "The Draconis hierarchy acknowledges its error in interpreting human diplomatic behavior as threatening rather than simply alien." Cassidy smiled. "Same on our side. Turns out we're both just different kinds of people trying not to get eaten." The prince made that rumbling, hissing sound that approximated laughter. "Indeed. The universe is vast and often frightening. Perhaps all sentient species are, as you said, scared lizards in need of reassurance." As the diplomatic teams finalized details, an unexpected development emerged from the Draconis homeworlds. News of the human who speaks to dragons had spread rapidly, triggering a flood of citizenship applications and protection petitions. Apparently, the concept of humans who could understand and soothe reptilian anxiety had massive appeal in a society where stoicism and aggression were the only culturally acceptable responses to stress. "You've become something of a cultural phenomenon," Dr. Matsuo informed Cassidy as they prepared for the return journey. "The Draconis information networks are calling you Scale Speaker and Clutch Friend. There are already merchandise opportunities being discussed." Cassidy grimaced. "I'd rather just go home. Thanks. I've got finals next week and Smaug needs his habitat cleaned." The return to Earth brought unexpected fame that Cassidy did her best to avoid. She declined offers to become an official diplomatic liaison, turned down book deals and void-cast appearances, and politely refused Prince Vexilahar's offer of a ceremonial position in the royal clutch hierarchy, equivalent to being adopted into the Draconis royal family. Instead, she returned to Nebraska, resumed her shifts at the diner, and continued caring for her growing collection of rescued reptiles, now including a small Draconis hatchling named Vexilahar Jr., a diplomatic gift that caused considerable consternation among Earth's xenobiological containment specialists, until Cassidy pointed out that it was essentially just a very intelligent iguana with limited telepathic abilities. Her singed plaid shirt was ceremonially preserved in the Smithsonian, labeled simply, "Diplomatic Breakthrough Garment, Draconis Earth Peace Treaty, 37892 CE." School children would giggle at its ordinary appearance, not understanding how something so mundane had changed the course of interstellar relations. In the months that followed, Earth experienced an unprecedented economic and cultural renaissance. Draconis technology flowed freely, elevating human capabilities in medicine, energy production, and space travel. Tourism between the planets began cautiously, with Draconis visitors particularly interested in Earth's diverse reptile species and the humans who cared for them. Cassidy herself received only one visitor from the diplomatic corps, Dr. Matsuo, who arrived unannounced at the diner one rainy Tuesday afternoon. "You're missing quite the revolution," Matsuo said, sliding into a booth as Cassidy delivered a chocolate milkshake to the next table. "I'm good with lizards, not politics," Cassidy replied, wiping her hands on her apron. "How's the treaty holding up?" "Better than anyone predicted. The Draconis have opened 7 cultural centers on Earth. Prince Vexilahar has become something of a human culture enthusiast, particularly fond of milkshakes, apparently." Cassidy laughed. "So the fate of 2 species hinged on pets and dessert. Could have saved everyone 60 years of stress if we'd figured that out sooner." Matsuo's expression turned serious. "That's actually why I'm here. The diplomatic corps is establishing a new division, the Draconis Comfort Engineering Initiative. Off the books, of course. Sounds fancy. We need consultants with your unique perspective. Not full-time, Matsuo added quickly, seeing Cassidy's expression. Just occasional advice on training diplomatic personnel in reptilian comfort techniques. You want me to teach diplomats how to pet lizards? Essentially, yes. Matsuo slid a small data chip across the table. Your contribution would remain confidential, but potentially invaluable for future interspecies relations. Cassidy considered the offer, watching Vexelaher Jr. sunning himself in the window of the diner, his miniature wings unfurled to catch the afternoon light. The tiny dragon had become something of a local celebrity, drawing customers who would order extra milkshakes just to watch him delicately lap at the whipped cream. "I'll think about it," she said finally, pocketing the chip. "But I'm not leaving Nebraska, or giving up my shift schedule." "Of course not," Matsuo agreed. "After all, Earth's greatest diplomatic asset should remain exactly what she is, a ordinary girl who's extraordinarily good with scared lizards." As Matsuo left, Cassidy's communication device pinged with an incoming message, a secure channel that connected directly to the Draconis embassy. Prince Vexelaher's scaled face appeared in holographic miniature, nostril scales fluttering in what she now recognized as friendly greeting. Scale speaker," he rumbled formally, then switched to the more casual tone he'd adopted in their conversations. "The Sovereign Clutch has approved the cultural exchange program. The first cohort of Draconis youths will visit Earth's reptile sanctuaries next month." "That's great news," Cassidy replied. "Just remember what we discussed about human personal space and not breathing fire indoors." The prince made the hissing rumble of Draconis laughter. "They have been thoroughly briefed, and they are bringing gift baskets of thermal rocks for your collection of Earth reptiles. Smaug will be thrilled. He loves new rocks to sun on." As the communication ended, Cassidy returned to her work, filling ketchup bottles and taking orders as if she hadn't recently prevented interstellar genocide. Outside, Earth continued its orbit, now under the unexpected protection of the fearsome Draconis fleet, all because a teenage girl had recognized that even the most terrifying creatures in the galaxy sometimes just needed someone to understand their fears. That evening, as she closed the diner, Cassidy paused to watch the night sky where a new star seemed to shine. The orbital lights of the permanent Draconis embassy, now established in Earth's orbit. Vexelaher Jr. chirped from his travel habitat, sensing her momentary melancholy. "Don't worry," she told him, gently stroking his warming scales. "We're all just scared lizards looking for a little reassurance in a big, confusing universe." The tiny dragon purred in response, a perfect miniature of the sound that had changed history, proof that sometimes the most powerful diplomatic tool isn't strength or strategy, but simply the willingness to reach out a hand and say, "Don't be scared, big lizard. I just want to hug you."